I'm Veronica, 28 years old, a marketing executive from Boston. Growing up with my controlling mother Janet was challenging, but it made me who I am today. When I met Michael 3 years ago, I finally found the love and support I always craved. Planning our wedding should have been magical, but when my mother called it a circus and refused to contribute, I faced a choice cave to her demands, or stand my ground. If you want to know what happens when you finally stop dancing to someone else's tune, stick around. Before I dive in, let me know where you're watching from. In the comments, hit that like button and subscribe to follow more stories of standing up for yourself. I grew up in a modest brick house in a middle-class Boston neighborhood where appearances mattered more than feelings. My mother Janet ruled our home with iron control disguised as love. Every aspect of my life fell under her scrutiny, from the clothes I wore to the friends I chose. Veronica changed that outfit immediately. Those jeans make you look heavier than you already are, she would say as I headed out for school. Her words always cut deep, leaving invisible scars that lasted far longer than any physical wound could. My father Thomas loved me. I never doubted that, but he remained a silent bystander to my mother's tyranny. His typical response was a sympathetic glance, followed by, "Just listen to your mother, V. It's easier that way." Over time, I realized his love wasn't strong enough to protect me from her controlling behavior. My younger brother Kyle somehow escaped the worst of her attention. "Boys will be boys," she'd say dismissively when he broke rules that would have landed me in serious trouble. The double standard was glaring but unaddressable in our household. Janet's need for control manifested in countless painful memories throughout my childhood. When I was 12, I spent weeks working on an art project for school, pouring my heart into a collage about marine conservation. The night before it was due, she threw it in the trash. "This looks like garbage, Veronica. I won't have teachers thinking we allow such messy work from you. Start over and do it properly." I stayed up all night recreating something that met her standards, but contained none of my original passion. I got an A, but felt nothing when the teacher praised my work. During my junior year of high school, I dated Aaron, a sweet boy who played bass in a local band. He had kind eyes and made me laugh, two qualities my mother found worthless. "Musicians end up drug addicts or paupers," she declared after meeting him once. "Break up with him by the end of the week, or I'll call his parents myself." The heartbreak I felt ending things with Aaron wasn't just about losing my first boyfriend. It was the harsh realization that my happiness would always be secondary to my mother's vision for my life. College should have been my escape, but Janet's control extended there too. I started as a journalism major, excited to pursue my passion for writing. 3 weeks into my first semester, after constant calls and threats to cut financial support, I switched to business administration because it offered actual career prospects, according to my mother. A year later, she pushed me to change again to pre-law. "Lawyers make real money, Veronica. Marketing degrees are for people who couldn't handle something more challenging." I complied again, hating every minute of my classes, but desperate to maintain peace. It wasn't until my junior year, during a particularly miserable constitutional law course, that something inside me finally broke. I walked out mid-lecture, called the registrar's office, and switched back to marketing. When Janet found out, her rage was apocalyptic, but for the first time I stood my ground. "I'm not living the rest of my life to please you," I told her during our screaming match. "I'd rather pay my own way through school than spend another day studying something I hate." To my shock, she didn't cut me off financially, though the emotional punishment lasted months. Silent treatment, passive-aggressive comments, concerned calls to relatives about my poor decisions. Still, that small act of rebellion sparked something inside me. After graduation, despite Janet's insistence that I move back home to save money, I found an apartment in Cambridge with 2 roommates. My marketing job at a tech startup didn't impress her, but it paid my bills and gave me distance from her constant criticism. Those first years of independence were terrifying but exhilarating. Simple decisions like choosing what to eat for dinner or how to arrange my furniture gave me a thrill because they were mine alone. Without Janet's voice constantly in my ear, I slowly began discovering who Veronica actually was beneath the layers of maternal expectation. I met Michael 3 years ago at a marketing conference in Chicago. We were seated at the same table during a networking lunch, and I immediately noticed his warm smile and attentive way of listening. Unlike most people at industry events, who were busy scanning the room for more important connections, Michael focused completely on whoever was speaking. "I'm developing software to help small businesses compete with corporate marketing budgets," he explained when I asked about his work. His passion for helping underdogs shone through in every word. We exchanged business cards, and later that evening he texted asking if I wanted to grab coffee before the next day's sessions. That coffee turned into breakfast, then lunch, then dinner after the conference concluded. By the time I boarded my flight back to Boston, we had planned our first official date for the following weekend, when he would be in town visiting his college friend. Michael worked as a software engineer for a company with offices in both Boston and Chicago, allowing him to transfer to the Boston location after we had been dating long distance for 3 months. Unlike the high-pressure status-conscious men my mother had always pushed me toward, Michael was laid back and secure in himself. He wore comfortable clothes, lived in a modest apartment, and valued experiences over possessions. "You seem different with him," my friend Alyssa commented after meeting Michael for the first time. "More relaxed, like you can breathe fully." She was right. Michael's unconditional acceptance helped heal wounds I didn't even realize were still open. With him, I never felt judged for ordering dessert, wearing comfortable shoes, or expressing an opinion. These sound like basic freedoms, but after years of Janet's microscopic scrutiny, they felt revolutionary. When I finally introduced Michael to my parents, Janet's disapproval was immediate, though thinly veiled behind social politeness. "Software engineering sounds interesting," she said with the fake smile I knew too well. "Is that something you see as a long-term career, or are you planning to move into management eventually?" Later, alone in the kitchen, she unleashed her true assessment. "He seems nice enough, Veronica, but honestly, not really husband material. Did you see his shoes? And that apartment in Cambridge must be so small. Don't you think you could find someone a bit more established? Maybe one of the lawyers at Harrison and Weber, where your cousin Sarah works." "Michael makes me happy, Mom. He's kind and smart and treats me with respect." "Happiness fades," she replied dismissively. "Financial security and social connections last." Despite Janet's undercutting comments, Michael and I grew closer. After dating for just over a year, we decided to move in together, finding a lovely apartment in Somerville with a small garden patio. Cohabitation revealed new dimensions to our relationship. I discovered Michael's patient problem-solving approach to everything from fixing plumbing issues to resolving disagreements. He learned about my anxious tendencies and perfectionism that flared up when I felt insecure, lingering effects from years under Janet's critical eye. The proposal came during a weekend trip to Cape Cod, 18 months into our relationship. We were walking along a nearly empty beach at sunset when Michael stopped, took both my hands, and spoke the words that changed everything. "Veronica, you've taught me what it means to be truly brave. Watching you build a life on your terms despite all the pressure to be someone else inspires me every day. I want to continue growing with you, supporting each other through whatever comes next. Will you marry me?" The ring was simple and perfect, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. I said yes through happy tears, and we spent the evening calling friends and family to share our news. Everyone responded with genuine joy, except Janet. When I called my parents' house, my father answered and immediately offered warm congratulations. When he passed the phone to my mother, the temperature dropped noticeably. "Well, that's certainly news, she said flatly. "I assume you'll have a long engagement to properly plan everything. Have you thought about venues yet?" The Danbury Hotel books 2 years in advance for their ballroom. No congratulations, no happiness for my happiness, just immediate attempts to take control of planning. My brother Kyle, now in college himself, was genuinely thrilled when I told him, "Michael's awesome, V. You deserve someone who actually sees how amazing you are." Meeting Michael's parents, Barbara and Richard, provided a stark contrast to my own family dynamics. They welcomed me with open arms and zero judgment. "We're so happy Michael found you." Barbara told me during our first dinner together, "All we've ever wanted is for our children to find partners who bring out their best selves." Their sincere warmth made me both happy and sad, showing me what parental love without conditions looked like. It also gave me hope for the kind of family Michael and I might create together someday. As engagement excitement settled into wedding planning reality, I began envisioning a ceremony that truly represented us. Something intimate and meaningful in a garden setting, focusing on our commitment rather than extravagant displays. Michael was completely supportive, caring only that the day made me happy. "This is our wedding, V," he reminded me. "Not your mother's, not a show for anyone else. Just a celebration of us choosing each other." His words became my mantra as we moved forward, though I knew Janet would have very different ideas about what our wedding should be. The initial wedding planning meeting with my mother went exactly as I feared. Janet arrived at our apartment with 3 large binders, already filled with venue brochures, caterer menus, and magazine clippings. I've made appointments for us to tour the Danbury Hotel, the Wellington Club, and the Grand Ballroom downtown, she announced before even taking off her coat. The Danbury is my first choice, obviously. The other 2 are backups in case their spring dates are already booked. I exchanged glances with Michael, who squeezed my hand supportively under the table. Actually, Mom, we were thinking of something different. We'd like an outdoor ceremony, something smaller and more personal. Maybe the Botanical Gardens or that lovely orchard in Lexington. Janet's face fell before rearranging itself into a tight smile. Outdoor weddings are so risky, Veronica. What about rain? And think of grandmother's arthritis. She can't sit on folding chairs for hours. This began the pattern that would define the entire wedding planning process. Every idea Michael and I suggested met immediate criticism and counter-objections from Janet. Our preferred date in May. June is the traditional wedding month. May is for people who couldn't book in June. Our guest list of 75 close friends and family first. That's barely worth the expense of a proper reception. Then later when we added more people. Do you really need to invite all those work friends? They'll be virtual strangers in 5 years. Our menu selection of locally sourced seasonal options. People expect prime rib or salmon at weddings, not farm-to-table vegetables. No one will remember your environmental values. They'll just remember being hungry. Michael grew increasingly concerned about Janet's interference as weeks passed. After an especially tense dinner where she dismissed every suggestion we made, he broached the subject carefully as we prepared for bed. Your mom seems determined to plan the wedding she wants, not the one we've been discussing, he said, folding laundry with methodical precision. I'm worried about how stressed you seem after every meeting with her. This is just how she is, I replied, the automatic defense mechanism developed over years of making excuses for Janet's behavior. She settles down eventually if you let her feel heard. But it's not her wedding, V, and I hate seeing how anxious you get trying to please her. The panic attack you had after the venue discussion last week scared me. He was right. After Janet spent an hour explaining why our preferred garden venue was pedestrian and would make us look cheap, I'd ended up locked in our bathroom hyperventilating until Michael talked me through breathing exercises. The cake tasting incident marked a turning point. We'd scheduled an appointment with a small, well-regarded bakery known for less traditional flavour combinations. Janet insisted on joining us, though I'd tried to make it a date with just Michael. The baker, a gentle woman named Sophia, who'd built her business from scratch after immigrating from Brazil, presented us with 12 delicious samples ranging from classic vanilla to innovative combinations like lavender honey and dark chocolate with orange zest. This is our favourite, I said after Michael and I both fell in love with an almond cake with raspberry filling and buttercream frosting. It's perfect. Janet took a microscopic bite, frowned dramatically, and loudly proclaimed, "This is nearly inedible. The texture is all wrong and that filling is much too sweet. No one with decent taste would serve this." Sophia's face fell, though she maintained professional composure. I wanted to sink through the floor from embarrassment. "Perhaps Madam would prefer the lemon cake with blueberry," Sophia suggested politely. "What I'd prefer is a baker who understands classic wedding cakes," Janet replied. "We'll need to find somewhere else, Veronica. I know a wonderful French patisserie downtown that made your cousin Sarah's cake." In the car afterward, I finally confronted her. "Mum, that was incredibly rude. Sophia is an award-winning baker and you treated her like she was serving grocery store cake." "I'm trying to save you from making embarrassing choices you'll regret when you look back at wedding photos in 20 years, Janet snapped. "You've always had questionable taste, Veronica. It's my job as your mother to guide you." That night, Michael's parents called to check in on wedding plans. When they sensed my distress, they made a generous offer. "We'd like to contribute to the wedding," Richard said. "No strings attached. Whatever you two want, we support completely." Their kindness, contrasted with my mother's controlling behaviour, brought me to tears. The tension reached breaking point during what was supposed to be a pleasant dinner with both sets of parents to discuss final plans. Michael's parents drove in from Connecticut, eager to help with whatever we needed. The evening started cordially enough, but when discussion turned to decorations, Janet couldn't contain herself. "These centerpiece ideas are simply cheap-looking," she declared, dismissing the photos I'd shown of wildflower arrangements in vintage blue glass bottles. "It looks like something from a discount country fair, not a proper wedding." I saw Barbara's eyebrows raise slightly while Richard focused intently on his pasta. "We think they're charming," Barbara offered kindly, very much in keeping with Veronica and Michael's style. "Well, perhaps that's the issue," Janet replied with a thin smile. "Some people's style could use refinement." Michael set down his fork with deliberate calm. "We appreciate everyone's input, but ultimately this wedding will reflect what Veronica and I want." "And what exactly is that?" Janet asked sharply. "Mason jars and hay bales. I won't have my friends and colleagues whispering about how tacky my daughter's wedding was." The table fell into uncomfortable silence. I could see my father shifting awkwardly, wanting to diffuse the situation, but unwilling to contradict Janet. "I think what's most important is that the day is meaningful for Veronica and Michael," he finally offered. "What's meaningful is not embarrassing yourself with some rustic barn nonsense. When you could have an elegant event, people will actually remember positively," Janet countered. After dinner, I took Michael aside while our parents had coffee in the living room. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered, fighting back tears. "Every decision becomes a battle with her. Maybe we should just elope." "We'll figure this out together," Michael promised, holding me close. "This is our day, not hers." I nodded against his chest, gathering strength from his steady presence. Little did I know the worst confrontation was yet to come. The dinner that changed everything happened on a Tuesday evening in early February, 6 months before our planned wedding date. My parents came over to our apartment where I had prepared my mother's favourite meal, beef bourguignon, hoping to soften the atmosphere as we finalised wedding details. Janet arrived already, wearing an expression of disapproval, commenting on everything from our apartment's cleanliness to the wine Michael had selected. My father Thomas followed behind her, like a shadow offering me an apologetic smile as he handed over a bouquet of daisies. "I thought we could go through the final plans tonight," I said, as we settled around our dining table. "We've incorporated some of your suggestions, Mom, but we've also kept the elements that feel most important to us." I presented the carefully prepared folder containing our venue contract for the garden at the Historical Society sample, invitations, menu selections, and photographer details. For weeks, Michael and I had compromised on certain aspects, choosing a slightly more formal dinner option and agreeing to traditional white linens instead of the colourful tablecloths I initially wanted. As Janet flipped through the pages, her expression darkened with each turn. By the time she reached the budget breakdown, her lips had practically disappeared into a thin line of disapproval. "This is what you're settling on, after all my suggestions." She pushed the folder away as if it contained something distasteful. "The Historical Society gardens, their ballroom doesn't even have proper chandeliers." "We love the gardens, Mom. It's exactly the feeling we want." I tried to explain, keeping my voice level. "Intimate, natural, and personal." "The Andersons' daughter had her reception at the Danbury," Janet continued as if I hadn't spoken. 500 guests, ice sculptures, and a 12-piece orchestra. People still talk about it." Michael gently interjected, "We're not looking to create the same kind of wedding. We want something that represents us and our relationship." Janet turned her cold gaze toward him. "And what exactly is that supposed to mean? Something casual, unrefined, cheap?" "It means authentic," Michael replied evenly. "Something that celebrates our commitment without unnecessary extravagance." The tension in the room thickened as Janet set down her fork with deliberate slowness. "I see. So the suggestions from the person who has attended countless society weddings and knows what's proper are unnecessary. How enlightening." My father attempted to diffuse the situation. "The gardens look lovely in these photos, Janet, and they've chosen beautiful flowers. Stay out of this." Thomas," she snapped. "You've never understood social implications." I took a deep breath, trying one last approach. "We've revised the budget to include the upgraded catering options you suggested, Mom, and we switched to the more traditional invitations. We're trying to find a middle ground." "Middle ground," Janet laughed bitterly. "There is no middle ground between elegant and embarrassing Veronica." She picked up the budget sheet again, scanning it with narrowed eyes. "And who exactly is paying for this?" "Compromise. The initial agreement was that we would contribute the standard parental portion. We were hoping you'd still help with what you had originally offered," I said carefully. "But we understand if you want to contribute to specific elements that meet your standards." Janet's face flushed with anger. "Let me be perfectly clear. We are not funding the circus. Not a dime." The word circus hung in the air like a slap. Michael's parents had already generously offered to help with several aspects of the wedding, but my parents' contribution would still be significant. More than the money, though, her characterization of our carefully planned wedding as a circus cut deeply. "If you insist on embarrassing yourself with this garden party masquerading as a wedding, you'll do it without our financial support," Janet continued. "And frankly, I'm not certain we should attend either. What would I tell the Prescotts or the board members from the hospital charity committee? Mom, please," I began, tears threatening. "And as for your future in-laws," she gestured dismissively toward Michael, "they clearly lack the proper understanding of what constitutes a dignified celebration. That crafty homemade aesthetic might work for Connecticut suburbanites, but not for our family." Michael's face hardened. In all our time together, I'd never seen him truly angry, but in that moment, his eyes flashed with a protective fury. "That's enough," he said quietly but firmly. "You're entitled to your opinion about centerpieces and venues, but you don't get to insult my parents. They've shown nothing but kindness and support." Support for what? For Veronica throwing away years of social connections, for squandering an opportunity to establish yourselves properly? That's not support. It's enabling poor judgment. Janet stood abruptly. "Thomas, we're leaving." My father looked torn, glancing between his wife and me. "Dad," I whispered. "I'm sorry, V," he said softly before following Janet to the door. The drive home was silent, except for Janet's furious voice declaring I was just like my father, too weak to stand up for quality and standards. The tears I'd been holding back finally broke free as Michael held me on our sofa after my parents left. "I'm so sorry," I sobbed. "I knew she'd be difficult, but I never expected this." "You have nothing to apologize for," Michael insisted, stroking my hair. Her behavior was completely unacceptable. That night, I barely slept, cycling through hurt anger and a lifetime of trying to meet impossible standards. Around dawn, as the first light crept into our bedroom, something shifted inside me. A weight I'd carried my entire life suddenly seemed optional. "We don't need her money," I told Michael as he woke. "And we don't need her approval either." He pulled me close, fully awake now. "Are you sure we can figure out the money part? But I know how important your family is to you. What's important is starting our marriage on our terms, not hers," I replied, feeling a strange lightning sensation. If she can't respect that, then maybe she shouldn't be part of the day. Later that morning, I called Michael's parents to explain what had happened. Their response was immediate and unequivocal support. "A wedding should be a celebration of love, not a battleground," Barbara said gently. "Whatever you two decide, we're behind you completely." I reached out to friends too, finally opening up about the years of control and criticism I'd normalized from my mother. Their outrage on my behalf helped me see Janet's behavior through fresh eyes. "You don't deserve that treatment, V," my oldest friend Alyssa insisted. "No one does." By evening, I'd made my decision. If Janet couldn't respect our choices and treat our wedding with basic courtesy, she would not be welcome to attend. It was the hardest boundary I'd ever set, but also the most necessary. The weeks following Janet's outburst unleashed a surprisingly liberating creative energy in our wedding planning. Michael and I cleared our dining table one Saturday morning, spread out all our resources, and completely reimagined our celebration without the shadow of my mother's disapproval hanging over every choice. "If money is the issue, we'll adjust," Michael said practically. "We've both got savings and we can scale back in some areas." We created spreadsheets, revised budgets, and explored alternatives. Without Janet's financial contribution, we needed to be creative, but the freedom to choose without criticism was worth every penny we'd need to contribute ourselves. Michael's parents called that afternoon. "We've been thinking," Barbara began, "and we'd like to increase our contribution. Not to overstep, but because we believe in the wedding you're planning." Their generosity brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you, but we couldn't possibly accept more." "Consider it an investment in your happiness," Richard said firmly. "No strings attached, no opinions on how it's spent." My brother Kyle surprised me next. He showed up at our apartment the following weekend with an envelope. "I've been saving from my software development internships," he explained, pushing the envelope toward me. "It's not a fortune, but it might help with the photographer or something." I tried to refuse, but Kyle was insistent. "I've watched Mom steamroll you our entire lives, V. Let me do this." Friends stepped up too. Alyssa, now working as a graphic designer, offered to create our invitations and programs as her gift. My college roommate Julia, who'd become an accomplished baker, volunteered to make our cake. Michael's best friend David, a talented amateur photographer, insisted on documenting the rehearsal dinner. With each person's contribution, our wedding transformed from something we were fighting to protect, from Janet's interference into a true community celebration. We found a new venue that felt even more us than our original choice, a beautiful converted boathouse on the river with gardens surrounding it. The rental fee was actually less than the Historical Society, and they offered more flexibility with outside vendors, allowing us to save on catering by using a fantastic local restaurant instead of a traditional wedding caterer. Every decision became a joy rather than a battle. We chose wildflower centerpieces in blue bottles collected by friends. Our playlist featured songs that had meaning for us rather than traditional wedding standards. We wrote vows that spoke honestly about our journey and hopes for the future. I called my mother a week after the disastrous dinner, hoping time might have softened her position. It hadn't. "I've given your father the update about your continued poor choices," she said coldly. "He's very disappointed. The only choice I've made is to have a wedding that reflects who Michael and I are," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "You're welcome to attend, but only if you can respect that." Respect. What about your respect for tradition, for propriety, for your family's position in the community? "Mom, this is about Michael and me starting our life together, not about the community's perception." Janet's tactics evolved over the coming weeks. First came the silent treatment, followed by attempts to mobilize family members to talk sense into me. When that failed, she tried tearful phone calls about how I was breaking her heart by rejecting her guidance. "All I've ever wanted is the best for you, Veronica," she sobbed during one particularly dramatic call. "How can you do this to me after everything I've sacrificed?" The old Veronica would have crumbled under the emotional manipulation. The new Veronica recognized it for what it was. "I'm not doing anything to you, Mom. I'm making choices for my own wedding. You're choosing to see that as a personal attack." After the emotional approach failed, Janet switched to threats. "If you continue with this inappropriate plan, I may not attend at all. Is that what you want? To explain to everyone why your mother isn't at your wedding. What I want is for you to be happy for me and Michael. If you can't manage that, then yes, maybe it's better if you don't come." My father called separately, his voice tired. "Can't you just give a little ground, V? You know how important these things are to your mother. I've given ground my entire life, Dad, not this time." My brother Kyle was the only family member who openly supported my stance. "She's been like this since we were kids," he told me over coffee. "Always had to control everything, especially you. It's about time someone stood up to her." As the wedding date approached, Janet's behavior became increasingly erratic. She left voicemails alternating between guilt trips and angry demands. She showed up at our apartment unannounced one Sunday, armed with brochures for a last-minute venue change. The final straw came 3 weeks before the wedding when she sent a group email to extended family members describing how I was going through a difficult phase and how she hoped everyone would support Veronica despite her unfortunate choices. She positioned herself as the long-suffering mother dealing with a rebellious daughter rather than a controlling woman unable to respect boundaries. After reading the email forwarded to me by a sympathetic aunt, I made the hardest decision of all. I called Janet one last time. "Mum, I need to be very clear. You are welcome at our wedding only if you can be supportive and respectful of our choices. No criticism, no attempts to change things, no negative comments to guests." "So I'm supposed to lie when people ask why the wedding is so unconventional," she countered. "You're supposed to be happy that your daughter found someone who loves and respects her. That's all. And if I can't pretend to approve of this inappropriate display," I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Then don't come, and know that security at the venue has been instructed not to admit you if you try to show up anyway. You wouldn't dare." "I'm not asking permission anymore, Mom. I'm setting a boundary. Your choice which side of it you want to be on." After hanging up, Michael held me as I processed the finality of what had just happened. We both knew Janet well enough to recognize she would test this boundary. With heavy hearts, we contacted the venue's security team and provided my mother's photo explaining the situation. "We've handled similar circumstances before," the head of security assured us. "It will be handled discreetly but firmly if necessary." 2 days before the wedding, Janet sent a text that confirmed our precaution was necessary. "I will be attending to make sure this event doesn't completely embarrass our family. I've already spoken with the venue manager about making last-minute adjustments." In fact, she had tried to call the venue, but the manager, whom we'd already warned, had politely but firmly refused to discuss our wedding with anyone but us. This information, combined with Janet's message, cemented our difficult decision. Security would indeed need to be prepared for her arrival. My wedding day dawned clear and perfect, with spring sunshine filtering through the curtains of the hotel suite, where my bridesmaids and I prepared. Despite the situation with my mother, a profound sense of peace had settled over me. "You look radiant," Alyssa said as she helped arrange my hair. "And surprisingly calm." "I feel calm," I replied, realizing it was true. Whatever happens today, I'm marrying the man I love, surrounded by people who support us. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. "Making some last-minute arrangements to salvage what I can. See you soon." I showed it to Alyssa, who frowned. "She's still planning to crash after you explicitly told her not to come." "Looks that way, but the venue security has her photo and clear instructions." "Are you okay with that?" she asked gently. I considered the question carefully. "I'm sad that it's come to this, but yes, today is about starting my future with Michael, not continuing patterns from the past." I alerted our day of coordinator about the text, who assured me everything was under control. Then I focused on finishing my preparations, refusing to let Janet's threats overshadow this day. There was a gentle knock at the suite door. "Veronica, it's your dad." I opened it to find my father standing awkwardly in the hallway alone and wearing the suit we'd selected months ago. His eyes widened when he saw me in my dress. "You look beautiful, V," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Just like I always imagined you would." "Is Mum with you?" I asked, glancing down the hallway. He shook his head. "She's coming separately. Said she had some things to take care of first." His expression turned serious. "Can we talk privately for a minute?" In the suite sitting area away from my bridesmaids, my father took both my hands in his. "I owe you an apology, V. Not just for today, but for a lifetime of not standing up for you when I should have." His voice cracked slightly. "I've always been so proud of you, but I've been too weak to say so when it mattered. Too afraid of your mother's disapproval to be the father you deserved." Tears threatened to ruin my carefully applied makeup. "Dad, let me finish, please. What Janet said about your wedding, about your choices, about Michael's family, none of it was right. I should have said something that night, but I fell into the same old pattern of keeping the peace at your expense." He squeezed my hands. "I won't do that anymore starting today." I hugged him tightly, decades of complicated feelings flowing between us. "Will you still walk me down the aisle?" I asked. "Nothing would make me prouder, but I thought maybe if it's all right with you, Kyle could join us too. He's been a better brother to you than I've been a father in many ways." The suggestion touched me deeply. "I'd love that." Kyle arrived shortly after, looking handsome and grown up in his suit. When I told him about sharing the honor of walking me down the aisle, his usual joking manner fell away, replaced by genuine emotion. "Seriously, V, that would be... yeah, I'd be honored." As ceremony time approached, the coordinator gave us updates. Guests were seated in the garden, the string quartet was playing, and everything looked beautiful. She also quietly informed me that Janet had indeed arrived and had been stopped at the entrance. "Security is handling it discreetly, as we discussed. She's quite insistent, but they're firm. Do you want any updates about this situation during the ceremony?" "No," I decided. "This is about Michael and me now." Walking toward the garden with my father on one side and Kyle on the other, I felt an unprecedented sense of freedom. The path was lined with lanterns and scattered rose petals, leading to a simple floral arch where Michael waited. Our guests were seated on white chairs adorned with sprigs of lavender and baby's breath, exactly as we had envisioned. From the distance came the sound of raised voices. Someone was causing a scene at the venue entrance. A few heads turned, but the string quartet smoothly increased their volume, and the moment passed. My father squeezed my arm. "Don't worry about her. Not today." As we reached the end of the aisle, Michael's face lit up with a smile that erased any lingering sadness. My father and Kyle both kissed my cheek before placing my hand in Michael's. "You look absolutely beautiful," Michael whispered. The ceremony was everything we dreamed, intimate, meaningful, and authentically us. When we exchanged vows, Michael's words touched directly on the journey that had brought us to this moment. "Veronica, your strength amazes me every day. The courage you've shown in becoming fully yourself and standing up for what you believe in inspires me to be better. I promise to create a home with you where love doesn't come with conditions, where your voice is always heard, and where we face every challenge as true partners." When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, The garden erupted in genuine cheers and applause. We proceeded back down the aisle hand in hand, pausing briefly when I noticed a security guard discreetly positioned near the garden entrance. He gave me a small nod indicating all was under control. The reception in the boathouse was magical. Fairy lights twinkled from the wooden beams, our wildflower centerpieces brought vibrant color to each table, and the food was delicious. Without Janet's disapproving presence, everyone relaxed and truly celebrated. Michael's parents gave a touching toast. When Michael introduced us to Veronica, Barbara said, raising her glass, we knew immediately she was special. What we've come to understand since then is just how strong she is. We couldn't be prouder to welcome her into our family. My father's toast surprised everyone, especially me. I haven't always been the father Veronica deserved, he admitted openly. But watching her grow into the incredible woman standing before you today, seeing her find the strength to create a life and a marriage based on what truly matters, has taught me it's never too late to change. To Veronica and Michael, may your courage and love continue to inspire everyone around you. During our first dance, Michael held me close. Any regrets? He whispered. I thought about my mother, who had apparently been escorted to her car after attempting to push past security. I felt a momentary sadness for what could have been if she'd been able to respect my boundaries. Not a single one, I replied honestly. This day is perfect because it's ours. As the night continued with dancing, cake cutting, and laughter, I realized something profound had shifted. For the first time in my life, I felt completely free of the need for Janet's approval. The people surrounding us with love and joy were the family we chose, the ones who supported us without conditions. When we finally departed amid a shower of lavender buds, I looked back at the twinkling lights of the boathouse and felt only gratitude. What my mother had mockingly called a circus had become the most authentic, joyful beginning to our married life we could have imagined. Returning from our honeymoon in Portugal, I found 17 voicemails and over 30 texts from my mother. They ranged from furious accusations of humiliating her publicly to wounded claims about ungratefulness and betrayal. We need to decide how to handle this, Michael said as we unpacked our suitcases. You don't have to respond to her right away. Or at all, I added quietly. The realization had been growing throughout our 2 weeks away. Maybe distance from Janet wasn't just necessary for the wedding, but for my life moving forward. The contrast between the anxiety I'd lived with for years and the peace I'd felt during our Janet-free honeymoon was startling. I think I need professional help to process all this, I told Michael that evening. I've normalized her behavior for so long, I'm not sure I even recognize healthy boundaries anymore. The next day, I searched for therapists specializing in family dynamics and made my first appointment. It was surprisingly difficult to pick up the phone, a lifetime of Janet's voice in my head, telling me therapy was for the weak, for people who couldn't handle their own problems. But Michael's unwavering support gave me courage. I'm proud of you, he said when I confirmed the appointment. This takes real strength. My first session with Dr. Martinez was both terrifying and liberating. Speaking aloud about Janet's controlling behavior throughout my life made patterns visible I'd never fully acknowledged. What you're describing sounds like elements of narcissistic parenting, Dr. Martinez suggested gently. The constant criticism, the conditional love based on compliance with her, wishes the inability to see you as separate from her own identity. But she's not always terrible, I found myself defending. She can be generous and charming when things go her way. That's very common in these dynamics. The intermittent positive reinforcement actually makes the control more effective. Over the next several months, weekly therapy sessions helped me understand my relationship with Janet wasn't something I could fix through better communication or more patience. The problem wasn't that I hadn't explained my feelings well enough. It was that Janet wasn't interested in my feelings unless they aligned with her wishes. Meanwhile, Michael supported my healing journey with unwavering patience. He never pushed me to cut contact with Janet, but stood firmly beside me, whatever I decided. His parents, too, offered support without pressure, including me in family gatherings and creating new traditions that helped fill the void Janet's absence created. My relationship with my father evolved in unexpected ways. After the wedding, Thomas began calling me regularly, sometimes just to chat without Janet in the background directing the conversation. I've started seeing someone too, he confessed during one call, meaning a therapist, trying to understand why I let things get so unbalanced all these years. 3 months after our wedding, we met for lunch, just the two of us. Your mother and I are struggling, he admitted. After what happened at the wedding, I finally told her I couldn't keep ignoring how she treats you. It didn't go well. I'm sorry, Dad. He shook his head. Don't be. It's long overdue. Whether we work things out or not, I need to find my voice again. Your courage showed me that. My brother Kyle and I grew closer than ever. Free from the dynamics of our childhood home, we discovered a friendship based on shared experiences and genuine connection rather than survival alliance. Janet's attempts to re-enter my life came in waves. After the initial barrage of angry messages, she switched tactics, sending gifts with no notes attached, as if material offerings could bridge the gulf between us. When that didn't work, she tried enlisting family members to plead her case. Your mother misses you, my Aunt Susan reported during a called ambush. She doesn't understand why you're being so cold. I'm not being cold, Aunt Susan. I've been very clear about what needs to change before we can have a relationship again. But she's your mother, families fight, but they forgive each other. Forgiveness requires acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Janet still believes she did nothing wrong. The first holiday season as a married couple tested my resolve. Thanksgiving and Christmas had always been major production events in Janet's control, with appearance prioritized over actual joy. What traditions should we start for ourselves, Michael asked as the holidays approached. We decided to host a Friendsgiving dinner, inviting those who had supported us through the wedding drama. For Christmas, we split time between a quiet celebration in our apartment and a few days with Michael's family in Connecticut. This is how holidays should feel, I told Michael after a particularly joyful evening playing board games with his siblings. Relaxed and actually fun. 6 months after the wedding, Janet finally offered what she considered an apology. I'm sorry if you felt hurt by my suggestions for your wedding, she said stiffly during an unexpected visit to our apartment. I only wanted what was best. That's not actually an apology, Mom. That's placing the blame on me for feeling hurt rather than acknowledging your behavior was hurtful. What more do you want from me, Veronica? She exclaimed. I'm here, aren't I? I'm trying. I want you to respect me as an adult, capable of making my own decisions. I want you to stop trying to control every aspect of my life. I want a relationship based on mutual respect. Janet left in a huff, claiming I was being unreasonable. But something had shifted. The power dynamic was fundamentally altered. For the first time, I wasn't chasing her approval or desperately trying to repair things on her terms. Our relationship settled into a new pattern of limited, structured contact. I would meet her for occasional lunches in public places with clear time boundaries. I responded to texts when they were respectful and ignored the manipulative ones. It wasn't the close mother-daughter bond I'd always hoped for, but it was manageable. A year after our wedding, when Michael and I announced we were expecting our first child, Janet saw a fresh opportunity to reassert control. You'll need my help with the baby, she declared immediately. I'll come stay with you for the first month. New mothers are completely overwhelmed without proper guidance. Thank you for the offer, I replied calmly, but we've already made arrangements that work for us. What arrangements? You can't possibly know what you'll need. First-time mothers never do. Michael is taking extended paternity leave and Barbara has offered to visit for a week after the birth if we want the extra support. Barbara, what does she know about our family traditions for new babies? This is about creating our own traditions now, Mum. The boundary setting became easier with practice. Each time I maintained my position without anger or defensiveness, my confidence grew. Therapy helped me understand that Janet's reactions weren't my responsibility. The work you've done is remarkable, Dr. Martinez commented nearly 18 months into our sessions. You've developed very healthy boundaries. Sometimes I still feel guilty, I admitted, like I'm being mean by not giving in. That's the old programming talking. Setting boundaries doesn't mean it's necessary for healthy relationships. As I prepared to become a mother myself, I reflected deeply on the patterns I wanted to break. In therapy, I explored the generational aspects of control and conditional love, tracing how Janet's own upbringing had shaped her parenting style. Understanding doesn't excuse her behavior, Dr. Martinez reminded me, but it can help you ensure you don't unconsciously repeat these patterns. Michael noticed the change in me too. You stand taller now, he observed one evening. When I first met you, you'd physically shrink whenever you got a call from your mom. Okay. The greatest gift of this difficult journey was the freedom to build a family based on acceptance rather than control. As my pregnancy progressed, Michael and I talked extensively about our parenting values. I want our child to feel unconditionally loved, I told him, hands resting on my growing belly. I want them to know they're enough exactly as they are. They will. Michael promised. We both know exactly what not to do. The profound lesson from the wedding drama echoed through every aspect of my life. Now, true love doesn't require you to diminish yourself to deserve it. Real support means championing someone's authentic choices, not trying to reshape them into your own image. When our daughter Eliza was born, the circle felt complete. Holding her, I made a silent promise that she would grow up in a home where her voice mattered, where her boundaries were respected, and where she was loved for exactly who she was, not for who anyone wanted her to be. Today, looking back at our wedding photos, the celebration my mother dismissed as a circus, I see only joy, authenticity, and the beginning of the life I was meant to live. By paying for our wedding ourselves and standing firm against Janet's attempts to control it, Michael and I set the tone for our marriage and family, a foundation of mutual respect that grows stronger each day. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who couldn't respect your choices? I'd love to hear how you navigated those challenging waters. Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the most important ones for your happiness. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength on your own journey toward authentic relationships.